Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another episode in the series. My name is Dominic, and I am the host of the Android Factory. The last few episodes, we've been talking about this idea of ViewState, specifically around our categories here. So I've just off camera been cleaning up a few things here just to get it where I wanted it to be. Nothing too crazy though. It didn't really change much of the functionality. One thing you might realize though is I actually changed the order of this screen a little bit. So we put the category second underneath the quantity and the priority low, medium, high. I don't know, just changed it up a little bit. Felt like this was better to be at the bottom or potentially get cut off by this, you know, keyboard until you scroll. So whatever. And so I guess just to cover some of the changes that I made here, I added a conditional show loading here that we only set to true when we are invoking this function in the very beginning, basically like setting up the page, because otherwise when we selected a particular category, it would also show the loading, and so it really didn't look too good. But now, you can see the different options that are here, and you can just select one, and you can pretty easily see the change happening at this point, which is pretty nice. If you really look closely, you can actually see the items kind of like slightly moving a little bit, and I think that's just because I set the selected one to have bold font, and then the other ones are just the default font. So it's technically taking up a little bit more room, or things are starting to move because of that. But I don't actually mind it. It actually looks like it's breathing a little bit, which is kind of cool. But if we really wanted to fix it, we probably could. In dark mode, I kind of cleaned things up a little bit. I think it looks pretty good here. I actually think it looks really good, to be completely honest with you. I'm enjoying how this is working out. But today we have to connect these up, right? We have it going the other way where there's a particular category, the correct category is selected when you return to the screen. However, if we were to change it to Home Depot 3 and save it, it doesn't actually update the data that's there. And then there's also no way to unselect a particular category at this moment, right? If you just keep clicking the same one, our logic that runs here is just, going to continuously select the same category over and over again. So what I'm thinking here is we can actually kind of augment this list a little bit. So we have the list here that we're populating in our view state be fueled by the data that actually exists in our database. However, maybe we want to add basically an item in the front of it, or maybe at the end, I don't know, we'll see. But we want to add a constant item in there that is basically going to allow the user to select that, and that would be the indication that there's no category associated with this particular item, right? So if we go ahead and add a category view state item to this list in the front, we need a category entity, so we can go ahead and just build that right here. So we're going to, actually let's keep this inside of our companion object. I'm going to say function get, we'll just call it default category, just because of the name that exists above it. And so basically we're just going to return a category entity who has the default category ID, and then in our case the name is also going to be none. So inside of our view model here, we can just very easily get our default category, and then we can basically just copy this exact same logic here instead of it. So we're just going to say if the category ID equals the category entity dot default category ID, then that one would be the one that's selected, and everything else should remain the same. So I'm just going to quickly run that, see if it gets us to where we want. So I'm just going to say this is the default. Wow. Okay, so if we were to go ahead and select bread here, we will see that the grocery store one is selected. However, we can now at this point select none and that would allow the user to essentially assign the category of none, which is a category that does not exist, right? If we take a look at these, there's 3 there and 4 on the bottom, that's 7. Other than this none category, if we take a look at our profile, we only have 7 here, right? We don't have none. We know that. We know that it's this fabricated thing that we're injecting into the UI, but it's going to allow us to modify the object accordingly. Right, so now we have our save item entity to database. And so then, yeah, here's our logic for if it is in edit mode, but so before that, let's go ahead and say item category ID is going to equal, let's say, our shared view model. So there's a few ways we can do this, right? It's like where do we want to do this? Or how do we want to get this information? We do know that our epoxy controller, yeah, maybe we just access the epoxy controller's view state. We just need to find which view state or which category ID is currently selected, right? So it might even be nice on here to say, to give it a function that says get selected category ID. It's going to return a string, and this is going to return the item list dot find where it dot is selected category entity ID. And actually, yeah, and then I guess otherwise we're going to return the category entity default category ID, which we might rename to just say no or none category ID or something like that. Anyway, now if we just ask our, we don't have our epoxy controller, of course not. So we're just going to go through the shared view model. We're going to look at the category view state. We're going to look for its value. We're going to say get the selected category entity ID. Otherwise, we are going to return, I guess if we were to run into an issue. But at this point, we now have our item category ID. And so then we can just very easily set this information. Oh, look at that. We have a to-do right here and our item category ID. Right? So, just to recap, because I think I bounced around a little bit there, we have our function save item entity to the database. We do all our error handling. We figure out exactly where the priority is, the description. Now we've added a way to get the category ID. And then if we're in the edit mode, we go ahead and update the category ID of our item entity. Or if we are just saving it to the database, we, I guess initialize the category ID to be whatever the item category ID is, and then we just save the item to the database. So let's go ahead and let's say toilet paper, and instead of grocery store toilet paper, we like Amazon toilet paper. So we're going to hit update, and obviously we're not showing it in the UI here at the moment, but if we go ahead and select our toilet paper item again, we can see that Amazon is associated with it. And if we go ahead and check our database inspector, let's go ahead and refresh these tables here real quick. I hate how this goes so close to that. I can't see where it is. Okay, toilet paper has, well, I could have just looked for that. Jeez, man, wow. The only one with the category ID, E76, and then if we take a look at our category ID here, E76 is our Amazon one here. So we can see everything now being connected under the hood properly. I think the next step is we need to kind of notify that information or display that information, the category information up here at this level, because right now we don't know where any of these items are until you actually select into it and take a look and say, oh, okay, here's our category that it is a part of. So I think we're going to go ahead and just cut the episode here. Keep it short, keep it simple. In the next episode, we'll go ahead and just update our UI here to handle displaying the new and legitimate information that we have. And I think that might, well, I think this kind of wraps up our little discussion on the view state there. I think this is a pretty good, a pretty simple, pretty robust implementation here for our the different categories that exist. Now we have a little way to kind of remove a particular category, if you will. Um, and otherwise, this just looks like, a bunch of chips or whatever that you can select from, and that's it. So, um, if you enjoyed it and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one where we're just gonna round out the application up here. So thanks, I'll see you there.